last time on the Top Podcast. Lou, what are we actually talking about this week?
Top 5 things that meant the world to you in middle school. Do you guys remember, the first time, talking to a stranger on the internet? I was like, are you gonna kill me? I'm a little nervous right now.
I want to wear your skin.
Yeah, gotta help me. My marriage is falling apart. I think my wife is cheating on me. And
I will not buy this damn bundle because I don't want this damn game. Yeah, so the quarterback grabbed my nuts and my butt crack would just always show.
But 100% of the time, I was trying the flirt with some of the dudes that were just trolling.
But your fishing level wasn't high enough to catch catfish?
No, it was not.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, in soccer, you would be on just a colored team and a lot of kids soccer leagues.
Whoa, slow down.
Awesome.
So it's April Fool's. It doesn't count.
Well, Lou, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is Friends, I think.
What are those?
So
I have I'm not going to object to this, but it's very close. But I'm going to let it go. I'm going to let it go.
That's fair. Okay. Yeah. I mean, we could do whatever floats your boat. From some 4th grade to 8th grade, I went to a different school each year. No, I'm sorry. From 5th grade to 8th grade, I went to a different school each year.
Were you guys moving around a lot, or is that just what happened?
No, so... And I tell this story, but I've never fact-checked it, so who knows if this is real, but this is my truth. Who knows? Kwame Kilpatrick was the mayor of the city.
That's true.
That is true.
I got that one.
Me and Rob were both so ready.
Oh, perfect. Oh my gosh. You can't pay for these things, folks.
Well, if you want to pay, hit us up. Let us know in the comments.
Let us know in the comments if you want to pay for the thing we're giving out for free. Take our money now.
Well, we could be a pod with benefits if you pay us.
There you go. There we go.
Well, never mind. No need to reference that.
Lou won't be thirsty at Jason anymore. That's all I'm saying.
Oh boy.
Sorry, Kwame.
No, Kwame. Yes, so Kwame Kilpatrick used to be the mayor of Detroit, and he stole a bunch of money.
Also true.
Also true. And that is the reason why I think that Detroit's schools were closing down at the time.
Don't know about that one, but
there we go. That's the part where I'm not sure of. All the other things I knew are facts. But thank you guys. I appreciate it. And so as I was joining the school was closing down the next year. I went to 3 schools that closed down. And then I went to Dearborn Heights schools. And then from 7th grade was in the high school. And then they were like, hey, we're getting too many high schoolers. So this needs to only be a high school. This can't be a high school and a middle school no more. And then I got shipped off to another school because they didn't do 8th grade there anymore. So I got really good at making very shallow friends. You had to learn quick because I was working with different kids each year how to make friends. And it wasn't until 8th grade, going into 9th grade, that I kept my same friends from 8th grade. And that was just the coolest thing for me. It was so awesome. So yeah, it was just, it would be aggressive to say it saved my life in a sense, but I just didn't have any neighborhood friends. I grew up in pretty much the ghetto, and my family did not want me to go outside, and so I just never really had friends until 8th grade.
They didn't want you hanging out with that Mac 10 guy.
Mac 10. Oh my gosh, yeah, that's what a pull. No, he didn't seem like a fun guy to hang out. I don't think he played Pokemon, but who knows?
You never know. I could have asked him.
You never know. Hey, you play Pokemon?
Is that a gun Pokemon?
Is that a gun Pokemon? Is this Pal World?
Do you think that maybe that helped you learn how to connect with kids when you were still working with kids and all that, going through that? Do you think it helped better you further later down the line?
Yeah, so I think generally it helped me be able to just make friends very quickly. And so I remember being at Bear Lake and being like, oh, this is just another situation where I don't know nobody. And then I remember one kid, he dressed like a and I complimented his attire.
Sorry.
Yeah. Whoa. Is that too much?
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm asking what it means.
Term
I'll let you know if it's too much.
The cultural term, yeah.
Damn, that was a solid one for a long time.
But then again, I'm also not in the settings that use that term. So
Gotcha. Yeah, so
this
exit all that.
Who wears a wig?
No, it's a white fill in the blank.
Ah, got it.
So that's another reason why I don't think especially nowadays, I don't know if definitely a white person could is supposed to be saying, I don't know, who knows what people are supposed to say anymore. But
sure, yeah, you could say so. There's this kid dressed like urban. He dressed like he loved hip hop.
I grew up in a rural town. What about me seems urban?
I don't know where that's from.
Is that the ranch?
Gotta watch more Office, man.
Oh.
There's a scene where Michael refers to Stanley as urban, and he's just not having it because it's Michael not knowing how we'll talk about The Office another time.
Okay. I don't even know where I was. I don't even know.
White
what-
guy,
Yeah, white
dressed
guy.
like
yeah.
dressed like the brother of in
Oh my
Napoleon
gosh.
Dynamite at the end. That's what he was dressing like. Chip, that's his name. Dressed like Chip at the end of Napoleon Dynamite.
I don't even know where
Always and forever.
Anyways, you got good at making friends.
I got really good at making friends very quickly, but I struggled with making thoughtful friends that actually meant something.
Yeah, I have like depth to them.
That depth to them. They were a mile long and an inch deep kind of vibe. And so I think yes. To answer your question, yes, Robert. Like I want to. The reason why I work with kids is because I had such a weird childhood. And one, like I recently was listening to his podcast and they were talking about addiction, and the guy was like, I cannot listen to anybody's advice unless they were going through the same thing I grew through. And so I think man, I don't even know how to word this. Just because you grew up in a great family doesn't mean that you can't help people. And I think some people think that, and I don't think that's true. But I do think that there is some weight to the fact that I've been in your shoes and I know what you're going through without being cheesy about it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
That's
That makes a lot of sense because, like, I think both have value. On one hand, you have I grew up in a good home, therefore I know like good and healthy habits, right? But the flip side is it's just like it's easier to accept advice from somebody who you have that connection with. And then also definitely times where it's like I've been in situations where I'm like, look, I know what the answer is for me, but like I just feel a little off sharing it right now with this person. And it feels like there might be just information or something I don't have. And so I can see both sides.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with you, Luke. 'Cause, like, if someone's talking about, like, you know, how hard it is being raised in a single parent home and, you know, they grew up with their parents, you know, most of their lives and everything, I'd be like, yeah, get out of here. You're just reading statistics. You don't know what it's actually like. So I can understand that. And especially, like, adolescent me, I'd be like, yeah, who the F are you? Like, don't tell me something you've never been through. Thank you for all that.
Yeah,
But also,
Thank you to all
they're
the
not wrong.
for helping out for all the adolescent Robs out there.
Thank you. Yeah, I was talking to a buddy at Bear Lake, and he was like, sometimes I want to have a bad childhood so that I could help people out.
Yeah.
And in my head, I was like, that's one that's kind of wild to say, because more than anything, I wanted to have a dad. You know? Like, so, but I kind of get what you're saying, though, buddy. You know, but I don't know. It's a little insensitive.
It's insensitive. But the person that Mike said, yeah, he's like, yeah, I wish I went through a hard life so my testimony would be better. I'm like, okay, I don't know about that one. He's like,
Now, to his credit, the full quote was actually about him realizing, like, he realized what a dumb thing that was.
But when he
was
first said it, I'm
used
just like,
to-
get out of here.
Wait, who said that? Because I was told. Wait, do you have a story like that, Mike?
No, so one of the guys I was in a cabin with regularly towards the end of my camping career came up and shared one time when we were doing some kind of testimony thing, and he talked about how for a really long time he wished that like he had been addicted to drugs or something so that he could have one of those like super powerful testimonies with Moses where it's like, I came from this and I overcame it and God and you know the whole thing. And then like he was like he just had to come to that personal realization that like there is value to like being like, hey, no, I did the thing and I was raised this way and I did the thing the whole time and these are all the good benefits that have come from that.
I have another story like that.
This next portion had to be cut because of there were some personal names and personal information on there. So we got into the topic of what we do when people call us the wrong name.
Somebody at work asked me, she came up to the desk and went, do people ever call you Mikey? And I didn't even blink. I looked her dead in the eyes and I was like, not twice.
So you threatened a woman at your job, and you did it.
Well,
HR?
no, she got
Ring?
the joke. I was very confident that, like, if I could say it to anybody, it was her, and she got a huge kick out of it.
Oh, that's good.
And now she calls me Mikey every time she passes the desk. So,
So
He's still planning his.
so yeah, you got to murder.
and she will until she disappears. It's April Fool's. It doesn't count.
So if I'm ever convicted for a crime, I should have my court date on April 1st, just so nothing counts.
No, you just got to make sure the evidence
Do you
is
choose?
dated to April 1st.
No, you don't choose. You just got to time it out, you know.
Okay. Cool.
So my number 3 was Star Wars. Back when Star Wars was good, man, I was the biggest fan as a kid, and I'll die on that hill that back when Star Wars was good, and I don't even think that's a hot take anymore.
Star Wars was good once?
Get out of here, Trekkie. I love most Star Wars games. I know Lou brought up The Force Unleashed, and I was a big fan of that, but I also love the Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2. Never beat them as a kid, but I just love the RPG aspect, and which ended up being BioWare, which made Mass Effect. So, kind of got that whole love for RPGs. I love the Battlefront games, the 1 and 2 that were released on. I played them on Xbox, and I also had one on PSP that came out in 2007. I remember just how much I loved a little earlier. I think it came out in like 2005. There's this they came out with a build your own lightsaber kit, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I would just sit in my basement, fiddling with combinations until I got the one that I really liked. Yeah, Star Wars was like my fandom back then, and I wish I could go back to that day when it was still good. But yeah. That was one thing I was obsessed about. Star Wars, and more Star Wars.
Okay. I don't remember what the line was called, but there were these toys that it was like a tabletop game, just in the sense that you didn't have a board and you only played it on a tabletop. Although I guess you could play it on any hard surface. But it was like figurines of Star Wars characters, right? Mm-hmm. And they would have a little number that indicated how many spaces, quote, they could move on the base of the base that the figurine stood on, and then there was a little wheel on the bottom, so you'd slide them across the table and they would click. And so, like, if it was 6, you could move them 6 clicks, and so you could move them anywhere in like complete 3D. And then they would either have a spring-loaded torso, and they'd have like a lightsaber, and so you'd hold the base and pull the lightsaber back, and when you released, it would like swing really hard. Or they would have like a spring-loaded projectile cannon. And you would be able to have battles with these different Star Wars figures. And so you'd like set up a battlefield on the table and you'd pick your army from the collection and then you'd like click, click, click. And you'd like, try and get in close enough to be able to like hit somebody with a lightsaber. And there were some guys that had really strong bases and some guys that had really strong projectiles. It was like a whole meta.
I remember those, but yeah, I don't remember what they're called.
Those were the best. I would play those to this day. I remember, maybe my dad was just like being a good dad and like being enthusiastic because it's what we wanted to do and he was trying to spend time with us. But I remember him being like, hey, if we're going to play something, why don't we play those? Because those were awesome.
I was always more of an action figure kid. It's a little friendlier for an only child. But I still have most of them. I wonder if they're worth any money.
Yeah, there was 1 year, or not 1 year. There was one time I went to Beezy's house. And
shout out Beezy.
I loaded up my entire collection into my duffel bag in like a side pocket. And then like when we were hanging out and I was like, this is the perfect time to play these. My parents were weird about me bringing toys to like other people's houses. I don't know. And so like I then felt weird about it. And so I was like, oh man, I forgot these were in here. Have you ever played with these? And we played with them for hours, but I had to like fake it because I was like, if this gets back to my parents, it has to look like a coincidence.
It's wild like how much you went just to try to get around your parents.
At the same time, some of the stuff they were like intense about, in hindsight, I'm just like, don't agree with that one. So yes, I did go to extremes, but I was up against some extremes too. Desperate times.
Lou, did your Star Wars fandom ever go more than The Force Unleashed?
Yeah, so I had a funny story. So my dad would get sick quite often, and when he got sick, he would watch a lot of movies. And so that's when I watched all the Star Wars, all the Indiana Jones, all the Lethal Weapons. We would have just like movie nights. And that's where I fell in love with Star Wars. Later on, I found out he would just love to get high and watch movies. And he would just always invite me. And so he was never sick. He just was absolutely blown out of his mind. so yeah. But yeah, I cherish those moments quite often.
When did you find that out? And did you put it together or did he say something?
I put it together. So I found his weed jacket so it was a jacket that was only there for smoking weed. And then I put it on and I was like, I'm dad. Ha ha ha. And I was like playing around in front of my mom and she thought it was hilarious. And then I went in his pocket and I found a lighter and I was like, oh, that's a lighter. That's cool. And then I went in his other pocket and then it was his doobie stash. So I'm not sure why, but he kept a metal container.
Doobie Brothers.
Smoking
doobies with my brothers.
Like the cigarette container, but he just put doobies in it?
So I don't know if he would go back to them and smoke it, but I opened it up and I smelled it and I got a hardcore head rush. And then I remember my mom looking at me, it's like, oh, you have questions, don't you? So I was quite young when I found out. And then I don't know if I ever told the story. I was saving it for a long time, but we're on the subject. Me and my dad used to do snow removal all the time. And as we were getting out the hood to start doing like snow for people, we used to find a bunch of people that got their car stuck, and so we would spend our time pushing people out. So we like literally down the block, we saw a guy getting stuck, and we pushed him out. And the guy got out of the car to say thank you, and he looked at my dad, and he was like, "Jay," and I was like, "Oh, how do you know him?" He's like, "Hey, I got the best weed in town, bro. I got some really good stuff for you, so just hit me up, and I got you." And my dad was like, he kept like waving his hand. He was like, "No, no, 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 no.
That's not my kids here.
Hey, kids here. Do no, 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 no." But the guy like didn't put two and two together, and he was like, "Hey, yo, hit me up. I got that super stank 360. I don't know, like
You got the Super Stank 360 no scope?
it's something nuts."
That's like triple prestige to unlock that.
And then yeah, we got in the car and we did not speak about it. So yeah, that's where I fell in love with a lot of the movies that he grew up with as a child.
Then Mike's just a Star Trek fan.
Not
He wants to
just.
be a hipster.
Okay, I was born this way.
Mike, what's your number 3?
So, I know we said we weren't going to do this, but I also blatantly told you right up front that I was going to break the rule. My number 3
Girl related.
was a specific girl. Her name was Ariel, and I had a monster crush on this girl. We, let's see, I think the first time I really encountered her was at youth group.
Is this a
In-
Pokemon? Sorry. Continue.
A wild
Okay.
Ariel has appeared.
You guys do it to me, so I thought I might just do it to you.
No, it's hey man, I enjoy being on both sides of that.
Nice.
But we were playing. I know this game has a couple different names, but we called it Lightning, where it's you're
man.
lining up at the
It's not
like,
knockout.
the free throw line, and there's 2 basketballs, and you got to like try and get it in the hoop before the person in front of you to knock them out, and then last person standing wins. She was like 5 people ahead of me, and I was just purely in competition mode, right? And I'm this 6th grader, and I'm fast, and I'm able to take on. And like I'd won before as a 6th grader. Like I was pretty good at basketball. Somehow I'm blind. I don't know how that worked.
It's all
and
like
I was fast,
bowling.
and I
You
was
just gotta know
devious.
Get the motion down.
All in.
Right, dude, I was that kid who like if you were getting close, if you were behind me, and it looked like you might get a shot before I was gonna make my shot, and I was down below the
Oh, you
basket,
were the
I'd wait
a-hole.
for your shot to be getting close, and I just like boom, and I just chuck my ball at your
That's
ball,
why
and knock
people
your ball a
don't
1,000
want
feet
to play
away.
with you.
Yeah, well, I won. All right, I was good, and so I
Or you just
knocked
a
out
dick.
5 people in a row. I wasn't trying to catch up to Ari. She was just ahead of me. Our parents showed up before I could knock this girl out. Like it was like
Whoa!
long
Pause.
running trash talk. April Fool's, it doesn't count.
Eliminate. You were about to eliminate the girl.
Yeah, so I did not remove her from contention in the game. And literally, like, our parents showed up. The game just never ended. I had to go home. I was in 6th grade, and it was like, oh, pretty girl who is not only likes sports, but is good at sports. And then, like, a week later, man, I did not think this guy would come up this much in the podcast, and you brought him up first.
BZ.
It was Dylan and myself and this kid, other kid, Mike, and we were all having a sleepover at BZ's house. And it was
Shut up, BZ.
an iconic night of middle school. Like it was legitimately, possibly the middle school night. Where
It's
if
your
you
core
like, you
memory?
only have, yeah, like legitimately, it's like a core memory middle school night. So many good pranks. It was fantastic. And Dylan brings up the topic of like, hey, what girls do you like?
It's a trap!
And and that's what I thought at first, because I was like, oh no, we don't like girls. We're not allowed to admit this. Like the fact that I think about this girl and like kind of have a crush on her is something I can't admit to anyone. I got to pretend girls are gross. Well, Dylan goes first, and he's like, hey, top 5. So he starts listing off names that I've never heard of, and then he gets to 5, and he's like, I don't know, maybe Ariel. And I was like, mother, you stay away from
What
her.
a player has top 5. My goodness.
I know. I don't-
It's like, well,
I don't even
this
know
is
if I could
one
do that.
girl.
I think he had I think in hindsight, because we've had conversations about this, I think there was definitely some. I think middle school hit him hard in terms of like the social structure, but I think there was a little bit of glow up and a little bit of he used to live at camp, and so I don't think the school system was as big in a town with more pigs than people. And then he came to Canton. And it was just like there was probably a bit of a culture shock. But that was the moment where I was like, oh, this isn't a trap. He just named a real girl that I know. And like everybody like went through like nobody had as big a list as Dylan. But like it got to me and I was like, honestly, man, I know this is kind of weird because like you said it too, but like I only got one and it's Ari. It was the weirdest thing because like I admitted that. And then you guys know like when you're at camp and you share something deep and you're kind of the center of the conversation for a while.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of like I don't know if it's dopamine, but there's some kind of chemical rush that goes on that you're just like, oh, I like this. I want to keep having this conversation.
You lost me there.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm not an intense
have you ever?
whore.
Oh, that's.
No, I get you though. It's nice, because like I get it. Like people are talking about it, and, like they're engaging you. And it's like, oh, they actually care. I understand it. Yeah.
Yeah, and like so for me, it was this thing of like, oh, cool, I can admit to this new thing that's budding up inside me, and it's just puberty. It's not like it's whatever. But not only can I admit to this, but like people think I'm not just this nerdy kid necessarily. Whenever I talk about this, it's like I'm accepted because I have a crush on a girl, which makes it was so backwards. Because for the longest time, you got a crush on a girl. The elementary school approach to it is so different, and that was the day that I was told, hey, you should stop wearing glasses, which was unintentionally great information because glasses don't actually do anything with my eye condition, and you should grow your hair out. And that was like the day where I was like, all right, I'm done wearing these glasses, and I'm done getting buzz cuts every couple like weeks.
Was it BZ that told you to grow your hair out?
No, it was Dylan on both fronts. Flash forward to 8th grade, 9th grade, never got the girl, never even got close to getting the girl. There were a couple times where I think I might have had a shot. I'm ultimately glad nothing happened because it's like, middle school, didn't need this in my life. It's a good thing nothing came of it. It had just been bad. So like in hindsight, I'm like, I don't think I was necessarily as insanely far from anything ever happening as I thought I was, but that's a good thing ultimately. But yeah, that was just kind of like this thing where it was like when it got brought up, it was this kind of thing that people just knew like, oh, Mike's got a crush on Ari, but he won't really admit it unless you're Dylan or Brian. He'll admit it to those guys, but nobody else. But like it made me feel seen, I guess, whenever it came up and people would like, oh, talk to me about this, gossip with me, tell me this, and I'd be like, no, I don't know. Like there was also that like scared elementary school kid. I never got past that. I was infatuated, and that was my middle school crush. That was a big part of that experience for me.
Yeah,
Was that your first time? That was your first crush. So you've
First
never
crush.
Never had a crush
Nothing like
before
that.
No,
Ain't nothing like that
there were
first
maybe
time. He was my first crush.
Okay,
maybe one or two before, but it was the first one I ever discussed with anybody else.
And then how long were you? What's the closest you ever got to? Was she just always just there, or did you become friends?
We were kind of friends. So like there was me, Dylan, and Beezy, and then Emily, Jordan, and Ari kind of ran as their own little trio. And Dylan was friends with all of them. And then BZ, I don't know, he kind of had his own rapport with everybody a little bit. Like, in hindsight, that kid handled existence so much better than me and Dylan did. And so, like, we did encounter each other in the wild, if you will, with some regularity. And, like, we would both end up at family camp a lot. And, like, just by virtue of being some of the only kids our age would end up running in the same circles then. She was the girl whose best friend got a picture of me looking like I was picking my nose.
Yes.
You remember? Yep. So like she's actually appeared on this podcast a couple of times. It's just never like been my name. And the worst part is like ultimately probably could have been a really fun friendship and a really cool person to get to know in middle school. That instead this like weird crush thing just kind of ruined what that possibility, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, my first like big crush. I think like two of my other buddies also had a crush on her. So I get that.
Yeah. No, I will full credit to Dylan as a bro. When I said that and he was like, I will strike her from my list. I was like, you don't have to strike her from your list. Just don't try and date her, please. Because I'm going to bumble around for the next 3 years and hit nowhere.
Did she have curly hair?
Nope.
Okay. I wonder if LinkedIn would work.
Yeah, you big LinkedIn guy.
Is she
Forever
real?
mystery.
Damn.
Dude, how crazy would that be?
That would be super crazy.
Lou, did you ever, those early crushes, you ever have to compete with other guys? Quote unquote compete?
So I fell in love with popular girls. I don't know if she was popular per se. I don't know if the girl that we're talking about is popular. Or we're doing like, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying. Was Ariel popular?
I don't know what she didn't go to the same school as Dylan and Emily.
Oh. What about you, though? I guess you were homeschooled, so.
Yeah.
So she wasn't real.
And-
Went to the other school, Lou.
I think they were out, I want to say Farmington, but I could be way off on that. Yeah, I have no idea. I know her brother was like a musician, and I guarantee you that guy got into drugs.
Who has?
Like he just had, well, sure, but like he just had that vibe of like, I play guitar and probably drink whiskey and smoke whatever I can get my hands on, and I'm 16.
Smoke whatever I get my hands on.
Meaning both tobacco
Catnip,
and the wacky tobacco.
Yeah,
But I don't necessarily think he was a crack pipe smoker.
when you told the story of Ariel, it made it seem like she was not popular, but like out there. Like
I mean, so I feel weird saying she was attractive. When I was an appropriate age to find her attractive at the age she was at, I found her attractive.
if she's real, for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I've done the
And
research and it's not looking good.
No.
she played soccer, so she was on a sports team. And all the other dudes I knew thought she was attractive. So I imagine, like, the only reason she wouldn't have been popular is she did always kind of have this, like, in my head it felt aloof, but in hindsight there might have been a lot of insecurity there and just been like, like I'm not as comfortable as people would assume I am just from my appearance.
Deep. Yeah, that's a very deep thing to say. So yeah, back in the day, I was always into the pretty popular girls. Like I feel like
Hot
a lot of
take.
people were. Yeah. Oh, what's your hot take?
No, you're saying that was a hot
No,
take.
I was making fun of you.
Oh,
It's also a pun because, hot take. But
cool. Yes.
I'm having a blast. My jokes are maybe hitting half the time, but all of them make me really happy.
Yeah, that's all that
The
matters.
one was hilarious. The fishing one, hands down, top 10.
I was pretty happy with that one.
That was a good one. But as I got older, I don't know why, I got a lot of really bad dating advice from my family. And at some point I was told that if you date the non-popular girls, they're more willing to do things.
Whoa.
Yeah.
From your family?
I think so. I think so.
It's always mind-boggling to me when I hear secular families talk about, or like people who didn't grow. I guess like at the time you'd have been grown up to be considered a secular family,
Right.
versus like what life was growing up in my family. Yeah, sometimes I'll hear Hot Kyle and his mom have conversations, and I'm just like, I get it, he's a 30-year-old man, but this is super weird. And the fact that like they're both like, yeah, no, this has been going on since he was like 15. I'm just like, this is, I don't know how to handle this.
My mom was like, if you touch another girl, your dick's gonna fall off. I'm like, okay. 6-inch rule.
My dad told me at a very young age that threesomes were not that cool because it just feels like you got too many things going on at once. I was like, okay.
Shout out to Jay.
Shout out to Jay.
This is a weird time to bring this up. Did you know your dad and my aunt went on a date?
Hold up.
I mean, no. But
So your dad was in Paul and I's small group back in the day. And at one point, my aunt was like, wait, who all's in this small group? And I was describing it. She was like, she starts describing your dad. And I was like, yeah, that's him. And she was like, I think I wanted a date with that guy. And I was like, okay, enough said. Stop. I don't care.
damn dog, we could have been related. That's
They could have been. Lou, what's your number 2?
my number 2 is my number 1, right? Because we talked about video
Oh yeah,
games.
so no,
Oh,
well,
you
no,
already
you
did
gotta
it,
hold
yeah.
it, so it goes right to me. My number 2 was music. Middle school is really when I started to develop my own sense of music. So that's really when they started coming to own. I was still mostly restricted to what I could find at the Christian bookstore, and I thought I was pretty hardcore for listening to bands like Skillet and Red. So I was pretty hardcore. And it's funny because 3 years down the line, I think 10th grade is when I started, actually branching out to real music. But I'd hear people say the same thing, and I would just laugh at them because I'm like, no, you don't even know what like metalcore, post-hardcore is, type of thing. There's like 6 or 7 years where I was really into heavy rock, to hardcore, and all that, and it all started back here. I'd listen to that. I thought Skillet was super edgy because they had a song talking about how God was better than drugs, and
You're better than drugs. Your love is like
man, their lyrics, I listened to the album today, they had very cheesy lyrics, and that's kind of one of the downsides of Skillet is I think they're lyrically not that strong. I think Red was the better band of the two. But there was also a brief moment in middle school where a friend had me listen to some rap, so the ones I remember liking were Lil Wayne's Fireman. Listen to that today, not really a fan of it now. I think it was just because it had like the fire alarm in the background. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Chitty Bang's Opposite of Adult,
Hey yo, I once was a kid, all I had was a dream moment.
still kind of a banger. And then Eminem's The Eminem Show. So, the whole LP.
If I were to die murdered in cold blood tomorrow, would you feel so?
Middle school me is when I started to develop my taste in music, and I'd be listening to it all the time. So that's my number 2.
Very nice. Yeah, let's see. I discovered Reliant K. That was big for me back in middle school. And Emery, I also got them from the Christian bookstore. Otherwise, it was just kind of like whatever was made available to me by my parents. But I had a buddy down the street who had access to LimeWire.
Ooh.
And, that was fun. So my MP3 player, as I think we've discussed, was essentially just a thumb drive with a headphone jack and a small interface.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could literally just roll in and just plug it into his computer, and he could just load me up with whatever songs I wanted. I just didn't know what songs to ask for.
And you rename them. It's like Amazing Grace. Your mom goes, puts it on and smack that, you know.
I
never
don't
did
remember how I would, if I was clever about how I hit him or not.
Also,
I
found
I
out the way when I was searching the System of the Down song we talked about last week. Go listen to it if you haven't. The way when I search on YouTube is a violent photography is what the internet calls it if they want to try to be clever. But yeah, for the most part, for me, before I started getting my own sense, it was 103.5 The Light. You know, with I don't remember who the afternoon woman was who'd always play the Christian hits of the day. So I was a big Newsboys fan.
Dad's not dead. He's really alive.
Before that, so there was the old singer and then the new singers. I think still there. I don't know if they're still a band, but there's that song overplayed in the Christian community for sure. And the first movie, I didn't see any of them, but the first movie was god awful. It was so bad. And then classic rock. Those were my two genres I grew up listening to.
Do love me some classic rock.
Lou, when did your music taste start developing, would you say?
Oh, I mean, I was listening to music. So my dad was in a band. I think I've already talked about this. And so I remember listening to the Eminem.
Superman.
That's on Eminem. That's the Eminem show. I think it came out 2002.
Yeah, I remember listening to the Eminem show when it came out. So in 2003 or something like that.
Eminem it was 2002, 2003.
Yeah, and so my dad would play that while I was going to second grade.
Dang.
So I had music constantly going around. I remember at one point they were like, "Hey, you maybe should stop listening to this because I think you're understanding some of the lyrics." And I was like, "But Superman." So yeah, music was huge for me. I'm thinking in 2008 I got my PSP.
Yeah, you put music and videos. I had some music videos on mine. Yeah.
Yep, and you could start putting music and videos on that. And I remember being on the bus going to band practice and listening to My Chemical Romance.
Ooh.
Teenagers. So I was trying to be as edgy as possible.
Yeah. It was so weird. Initially I didn't like the voices of My Chemical Romance or Reliant K. But now I almost have a nostalgia for them just because that was back in the day where I don't mind them now. I'll listen to the whole Black Parade album and things like that. And yeah, it's weird how I went from I don't like the singer's voice to now I'm oh yeah, I like him. Maybe I just developed actual taste, but who knows.
It all changes.
I think Matt from Reliant K is one of the great underrated lyricists of humanity. That guy just had so many great play on words that I still to this day will hear and be like, oh, that's really good. I appreciate that.
Shout out to trying to get the girl some mood rings. Really trying to do his part. Mike, would you say you developed your taste in middle school, or is it with the whole LimeWire thing, or is it still you had to refine it more in high school?
I don't know, man. For all my talk of music and all my opinions and love for music, I feel like I'm still developing my taste. I'm just constantly finding new genres that I missed while being homeschooled. My love of pop punk is a couple years old, and I'm like, how was I not listening to Blink sooner? You know? And so there's also this thing with playing music, but really it's any kind of skill that you have to practice at and get better, where I think you go through phases of understanding where when you first start playing an instrument, you think you're bad at the instrument because you're bad at the instrument, right? Mm. And then you get a little bit better and you think you're good at the instrument because you don't understand how bad you are, right? And then you get a little bit better and you're like, oh, I'm kind of good at this. I'm starting to understand how bad I was. And then you learn a little bit more and you start to see the full scope of everything there is to learn. And even though you're the best you've ever been, you're like, oh, I suck. As you learn what is can be done, it the more knowledge you have about it, the more the less less good at it you feel. At least that's how it works for me. It's this weird bump of I'm bad, and no, I think I'm good, and now I think I'm really good, and then I realize I'm bad, even better than I was. And I kind of feel like that with my music taste, where it's like the more I learn about or discover, different genres that I never listened to, the more I'm like, wow, this is so fascinating. I want to like learn all about these music types. And so I don't know if I'm answering the wrong question here and using the same verbiage, but I still feel like I'm developing my musical taste.
It's fair. Let us know down in the comments what songs you were bumping in middle school. And thank you to both Ben and Arn for doing their part and leaving a comment on the last video.
Arn's a beast, man. He's been getting featured over on BacoCraft left and right.
Ooh. Mike, what's your number 2?
My number 2 would be what my friends thought about me.
Preacher brother.
Because I wrote a book called Capitol Hill, which has nothing to do with politics. It was just the name I gave the town that the book is set in.
Available on Amazon.
It is. I had always wanted to write a story that was loosely based on that neighborhood. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about just I was developing these characters, and the character who lived in the house that I grew up in was very loosely based on myself. And one of the things I realized looking back was there was this huge tug between the things I still loved from elementary school and this pressure to like things that other people thought were cool. So there was this battle between like, oh, I want to talk to girls, and I want the acceptance that I feel when I'm engaged in this kind of conversation and really like steering into puberty, as it were. But I kind of just want to be playing with a stick and pretend I'm fighting a dragon out in the woods, And it was just this pull of being like friends, and even to a certain extent just strangers, not wanting them to look at me like a little kid, while all I really wanted to do was keep doing the things I fell in love with as a little kid. And so that was a huge thing for me in middle school, was trying to balance, I just want to go make pretend and tell stories with just myself in the woods, and I want people to think I'm cool or mature or grown up or whatever, which is so stupid because I've met maybe 2 middle schoolers in my life that I thought are mature, and even then it's, wow, you're mature for your age, not you're mature. It was a constant battle back and forth for me.
I think that's a very common thing in middle school. Most people, especially because most people are trying to figure out just who they are, and they're too worried about like what other people think of them. Mm-hmm. I can definitely relate with that.
Did you ever share anything like that with like your family, or did your family ever promote a certain thing, or?
Oh, no, I didn't talk to them about anything. I talked to them about having a crush one time, earlier in the podcast. And, oh my gosh, the number of conversations I had that weren't just like, I was like, dude, I'm just I can tell that this is throwing my day off, and I want to like be able to focus. And like by the end, it was like, are you reading your Bible enough? And I was just like, okay, I'm not going to you guys about this. No, I'm like, yeah, you guys are a little intense, and I'm good. So I did not share much anything with my family while in middle or high school.
That sucks. Yeah, I don't know. How do you think that like contributed to like who you are as a person now? I guess that's a really aggressive way to like say that.
No, I gotcha. It definitely didn't help. I now in general. How to phrase this? So I went to a restaurant. I'll say it was like the day before it was the day before Thanksgiving, and we had 2 hosts. I think one of them was in training, and because like they were both walking me to the table. I got there first. And like one of them leaned back and said something to the other, and then the other one started doing small talk. And it's like, oh, you were just told to connect with the guests or whatever. And so she was like, oh, hey, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? And I was like, oh, I'm going to my grandpa's house. We're doing family dinner there. And she was like, oh, I don't have my grandpa anymore. Give him a hug for me. And verbatim, I looked this girl in the eyes, and I said, yeah, we're kind of an emotionally stunted family, so I'll probably give him a handshake, but I appreciate the thought. And I told that story to my grandfather at the table, and he thought it was the funny, like it was legitimately the best laugh I've ever got out of my grandfather. And it was definitely like, yep, that's about right. And it's just kind of how my dad's side of the family is we're figuring it out more recently. And it's resulted in a lot of us getting better at communication. But just in general, sharing and being vulnerable is kind of a new thing for most of us.
It's cool it's a new thing and not like a never thing, I guess.
That is true. Better than nothing. Better late. Also, the look on that poor waitress's face when I said that. He did not know what to do.
Deer caught in the headlights.
I think I might have called Paul on the spot to tell him the story because I was like, who else will appreciate this?
Hold on 1 second. Let me call my uncle and let me tell him what I just told you.
Well, I mean, let me rephrase.
She's just
After
bawling
they
her
walked
eyes
away.
out.
Oh no, she was just like, oh, okay.
Could you imagine bawling your eyes out?
At a restaurant, honestly, yes. I never got there. Like, there were some days where it was not that far away.
Well, Lou, why don't you bring us on home with your number one?
All right, I was talking to my wife about this, and I thought it would be really cute for this to be my number one. But my grandmother was my number one in middle school.
Ooh.
Yeah, I felt bad because I didn't really think of it, and my wife was like, "Dude, Nana was your number one." I was like, "Damn, you are right. That's crazy." And it's kind of like, I don't know. As a man, it's weird to be like, my grandma was my number one, but it was like true. And I think I've shared bits and pieces of my story, but pretty much my grandma adopted me from my mom. She took the opportunity to make her life a little bit harder to raise me. And my grandma is an absolute insane person. She's nuts. If you ever met her, she used to be an exercise scientist, and that's definitely not the right words. I butchered that one. She used to do aerobics, but she would call herself an exercise scientist. I thought that would get more laughs. Am I on? Hello?
You're good. Sorry. I was just trying to let you finish.
Oh, okay. Sometimes I don't know when you guys are going to interrupt and when you're not going to interrupt. Grandma used to call herself an exercise scientist, but really she was just a aerobics instructor, a water aerobics instructor. And she used to take me on walks constantly. And she quotes that was the only reason why I was able to play college football is for all the walks that we would go to get fast food from. She credits that for herself, and I think that's absolutely hilarious. But my grandma,
right?
You guys walking to the McDonald's?
Yeah, we would just walk to McDonald's and eat fast food. I don't think she's right. No. I mean, it'd be kind of rude to say.
Maybe why he played lineman in college, but
yeah, probably, yeah.
Could have been a wide receiver, running back.
But yeah, I was a very timid child, and I think it has a lot to do with the trauma that I did not work through as a kid. But my grandma she was just a damn hooligan. She grew up in Detroit when it was absolutely poppin', and so she has a ton of stories how she just didn't tell her parents, and she would just go to downtown Detroit and just spend all day there, and her parents had no idea where she was at. So I got a little glimpse of that. So like my favorite story is there was in Detroit they were building a bridge, they were working on a bridge, and there was a bunch of scaffolding just on the bridge, like near the bridge. And my grandma was like, "Oh, go climb that." And I was like, "No." She's like, "What are you, a wussy? Climb
Dang, Gma.
Grandma.
And so I was like, "Well, I guess I don't want to be a wussy." So I remember climbing extreme height. Like, it was a bridge, so it was extremely tall. And in the middle of the ghetto, just being on scaffolding and be like, this is not safe. But my grandma called me a wussy, so I don't really know what to do. And then any time that there was a body of water and a log or a tree would be over the water, she would be like, "All right, we're climbing that. We need to climb
absolutely.
that right now." I was like, "No, Grandma. Every time I'm near water, I fall in." And she's like, "You're not gonna fall in this time."
Don't you push
And best believe, I fell. No, she didn't even push me in. I fell. I would break the tree every single time. It wasn't a big enough branch or tree, and it would crack. And she would pass it, and she's like, "It's perfectly fine."
Lucian,
And she's like, "Come on."
have I ever told you the definition of insanity?
And I remember just crashing in bodies of water constantly, and my grandma being like, "Oh, get out of there, Lucian."
Damn it, Lou! Why you keep falling in the water?
Yeah, my grandma was awesome. Well, my grandma is awesome. I think she pushed me into being uncomfortable a lot of the time, and I couldn't share my feelings towards her because she was stunted in her own way, and I didn't understand that as a child, but I get it now. But yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, man, I get that. My grandma on my dad's side was huge for me. Like, every shred of self-confidence I have, I would point back to her as like an origin point, and certain conversations we had. So I totally feel that, man.
Yeah, her favorite thing was "Life's a bitch and then you die."
She ain't wrong.
Yeah, I don't agree with that, but I can respect it.
Make that t-shirt,
one of my
life's a
cousins-
bitch and then you die, Lucian's Graham.
Love it. My second youngest cousin told my mom when she was like 4 years old. She looked at her and she was like, "You live, or you're born, you live a little, and then you die." And my mom was like, "Yep, that's true. I'm already predisposed to that sentiment. You exist, it's hard, and then it's over."
And that's over. We're
As
just
I
the
like to
blimp.
say, you either have way bigger problems or none at all.
All right, my number one, taking a tonal shift here, is The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess.
That is indeed a total.
It is a very tonal shift. Unlike Mike, I had current video games in high school, or in middle school, and in high school. This game came out December 11th, 2006. I remember I had it pre-ordered at GameStop for the GameCube as soon as it was available. Sadly for young Rob, it was delayed about a year to coincide with the release of the Nintendo Wii. I remember I thought the realistic, gritty graphic style was all the rage. And now I will acknowledge that the more cartoony graphics like the Wind Waker do age a lot better, but I would love to see the remake done and like brought up to modern day graphics with that style.
That would be pretty sick.
And I was so into the game that I printed off a black and white screenshot of Link with a sword drawn and riding Epona and hung it in my locker. But you know, that was 7th grade, and at my school we had to share a locker, and my locker mate was not happy about it and ripped it down.
Oh, asshole.
Yeah,
Oh my god.
That's a little intense.
It's okay.
That is super
We
intense.
we ended up becoming friends later on, and you know, Jake still has a lighter.
Oh, jeez.
And one last reason I really loved it was because in early elementary school, my best friend at the time and I built an imaginary universe where I was Link, and if I remember correctly, I think he was Sora. But in this universe, I could turn into a wolf as Link, and I still can't believe Nintendo hasn't given me the kickback from stealing our ideas.
It sounds very sexual. I don't know if I'm picking it up on it or anybody else.
That's I'm gonna call just you on this one.
Oh, okay. So nobody knows what a furry is, but okay, fine.
I don't see how turning
Oh.
into a wolf equals furry. It's not like he, got in the suit and says, touch me, daddy.
I don't know. I mean, I call it when I
Wreck
see
me,
it.
daddy.
That's not even part of the podcast. That's hilarious.
So this was like the video game I was all obsessed about in middle school. So that's why I put it as my number one. Because I agree, video games were top of my list, and I wanted a specific game, and that was the best of the best.
I honestly, I never got that far in it, but I never liked it as much as the beginning of Ocarina of Time,
Well,
which is really, it's I can't really discuss it because I know that the story is what makes it
yeah, and
so good. That's
it was very similar to Ocarina of Time. Someone says it's like the actual successor and like just the formula to Ocarina of Time. It wasn't the literal successor because that was Majora's Mask. Same timeline though, so I mean, guess that's something. And that Link is in Twilight Princess. But yeah, it's the same like 3 dungeons you have to go to first, and then there's the temples and everything. And I watched King K's retrospective today, just kind of prepare for it. And man, it was like a nostalgia just going back. And I wish I could experience it the first time again. I remember sitting there, putting it in my GameCube. We had these overhead like LED lights in my basement, and I was in Nirvana there, and it was so much better than the band.
Well, why were you taking shots?
You have to keep it going. Nirvana just has to catch strays,
as often as humanly possible.
Fair enough.
I try to make it tasteful.
It's themed
You
well
want a
prepared.
non-tasteful joke about Nirvana catching a stray?
Kurt Cobain caught a few.
Kurt Cobain. So many rappers talked about Kurt Cobain's suicide. It's insane. It's
That
like
is
in almost
kinda
in
weird.
every rap song.
Can't say I've heard of it, but maybe I'm just not listening to the.
J. Cole has said it. So many people have said it.
Did he
yeah.
just say
Look-
it? I didn't.
No.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm sticking with it. If it's wrong, it's wrong.
I just know J. Cole is catching strays from Kenny, Kung Fu Kenny.
Yeah. K. Dot.
Whoa,
Kung Fu Kenny?
It's a.
Kendrick
It's a
Lamar.
Kendrick Lamar.
Ah,
I have really no opinion on the beef between the two, but I'm all about taking shots at Drake. What's he gonna do? Get his ghostwriters to write about me?
Possible.
Mike, what's your number one?
when I was working on the characters in that book and just examining high school,
Middle school.
middle schools, thank you. The whole being torn between what was cool and what I wanted to do was kind of a secondary thing. There was a theme that I noticed developing among the characters that I put together, and it was escape, right? Everybody wanted to get away from something in their life, and that became kind of the core central theme of the book. And for me, what it was expectations, right? That was just a massive part of my life. I was a really smart kid, and I was a pastor's kid, and both of those come with an obnoxious amount of expectation, and I hated it. You know, I didn't feel like I could just be a kid ever, and that's probably, I mean, it's feelings, right? Like, it's not like I'm not actually claiming that I was dealing with that, but that was how I felt. And I would try to convince people I was dumb because I didn't want to deal with the pressure of being smart. And I hated that I was a pastor's kid, because there was a point I could remember so vividly towards the end. I think I was in 5th grade, but it carried over into middle school, where I did something, and to be fair, it was something I was not supposed to do, right? Like, I broke some rule in kids' church, and I broke it with another kid. Like, me and the kid were doing the exact same thing in equal measure at the exact same time, and the person who was in charge of our group at the time dropped the hammer on me and let the other kid off scot-free. And I remember being like, well, why the hell am I even gonna try? Like, if this is how hard it's stacked, I don't stand a chance. And I've been running from expectations ever since. But that was just this, like, I didn't understand it in middle school. It was just how much I hated the pressure of expectations that came along with being smart or being good at sports, or, my dad's job, which had nothing to do with me. But that became just such a critical thing, was trying to get away from that. And that is part of what fueled this obsession with what people think about me. And so the number 4 just stemmed from this thing at number 1. And the wanting people to think of me as mature led into me wanting to talk about girls more. And that's when I started leaving things like video games for things like sports, because I wanted girls to like me, because I wanted people to like me, because I just wanted to get away from it all and feel normal, which at its core is just the experience of middle school, is that you have no idea who you are. Everything feels unfair. You're completely out of body. You don't feel right. That's just how it is. And I thought I was special, when in actuality I was going through, maybe there were differences, but I was going through basically the same thing everybody else was going through, to the extent that when like speakers at church would tell kids like, hey, you're not alone. You're going through all the same things other people are going through. I'd be like, well, maybe they are, but not me. And so, yeah, that's my number 1, was just the absolute fear and hatred of expectation.
Hit it on the head, man.
That's pretty much
Good
the
job.
same as my number 1. I'm kind of like where you guys are.
Yeah. You hit it right on the head, man. Job.
If you're a middle schooler, take notes.
No, I mean, I hope that I used to think the popular kids had no problems, but I think
So untrue.
Yeah, and it's completely untrue. I'm not saying that you're popular, but what I'm saying is that
I wasn't.
like anybody,
I was popular adjacent.
At Bear Lake, he was.
everybody
In high school.
felt the same.
I was church camp cool for sure. But
Another
I
t-shirt
mean,
idea.
I've been pretty open with how I thought you were cool.
that's fair.
I almost want you to come to my youth group and share this, because I don't know if I could say it any better. Like, it's so good. Good job.
Thank you. It does help that I had already worked all of this out for a book. And so it was actually, like you said this, I was like, this is 1, going to be the easiest pod I do, and 2, it's going to look like I did so much more prep than I did.
Yeah. Yeah, because I could have gone in a lot more about my grandmother and adoption and all that, but I was like, I don't know how much I should go into it. And then you absolutely just nailed middle school, just 100%.
Thank
You did a great job. And Robert, good job. Video games are important.
Glad I showed
Zelda's
up.
good too.
Zelda's good too.
I get a participation trophy. Yay! Sorry, I blocked out all those memories, guys. It's just how I coped with trauma. I'm sure there's nothing. I'm sure there's nothing toxic about that, right? Nothing wrong with that.
You might want to talk to somebody.
I'm talking to
Mike,
you guys.
So Mike, have you ever done therapy?
I have not.
Interesting.
I do a lot of introspection though.
Yeah.
Which is not the same thing for anyone listening. I'm not trying to equate the two of them. I think that our society has a tendency to almost equate self-awareness to fixing the problem. It's like, well, I know I do this. It's like, okay, yeah, but you're still doing it.
Doesn't stop you from doing it, yeah.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't make you not sick to realize you have a cold.
Yeah, I was listening to this podcast, and they were like, "What's a new red flag for men? Like, what are red flags that men have?" And one guy was like, "Recently, men are going to therapists not to fix their problems, but to have the language to speak to women and gaslight them."
Oh my gosh.
Jeez.
so they're like saying, "I'm bad at relationships because of X, Y, and Z. So so just love me for who I am. Don't gaslight me." Or like, "Oh, I'm working on myself." When really they're not actually working on themselves. They're still like douchebags.
That actually makes a lot of sense. I think I've encountered a couple such types out in the wild.
Crazy stuff.
This episode brought to you by Self-Help. I don't remember what the...
BetterHelp.
BetterHelp.
Oh.
Self-help. You're just on the Zoom call with yourself.
Yeah, but
Self-help is a new system Mike is starting where he teaches you to think about what's wrong with you. No, the flip side, though, to saying that being aware of your problems is not the same thing as fixing them, is that being aware of your problems is so freaking important. So, like, there is, I think, a lot of value in just examining, like, oh, I do this. Why do I do this? You know, can I do this better?
Amen. Very true.
So we're going to go with a little less of a serious topic next week. I want to know the top 5 places you've visited.
Ooh.
Your mom's house. Sorry.
Oh, bam!
Ooh,
That's
was a
that
pretty good
toxic,
time.
toxic masculinity we're talking about.
Low-key, I had a lot of fun at your mom's house. I'm not going to lie.
I was going to say, I've actually had some pretty good times at your mom's house. Guys' night, the barbecue. I mean, the ribs were but, like, everything else was fun.
I want to fight you.
Whoa. Just shine his chest, why don't you?
It's okay. It makes... I mean, Mike's made some pretty bad fish for me, too, so I guess we're even.
Bad fish?
I don't remember that, but
You're
I'm
cooking
sure I
fish
have.
for people?
Yeah, he made... I think it was...
Wait, you don't like seafood? Hold
you
on.
don't like ribs. It's the same thing.
No, I know. I just like...
Yeah,
it's
I know.
established that I don't like ribs. This dude's like sliding his food onto Becca's plate while she's putting down
Oh.
2 portions.
I remember the story.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But whatever the side was, I remember I liked a lot, so I got that and she got the fish. I definitely won that deal.
Damn, my honeymoon was good, but I didn't really get to do anything. I was just all the time. But I can't put that in the pod.
I mean...
Sorry.
Oh, got it. Place you visited. I was sitting there going, you know, I made fish on my honeymoon too. It was good.
Well, thank you guys for listening to this week's episode of The Top Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like, comment, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please give us a 5-star review and leave a comment. Let us know what you thought. And if you do, we'll read it off on the podcast and get some toppers points. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Fare thee well, and peace be with you.
Go get therapy if you need it.